WWE posted a playback on their YouTube channel with Kane and The Undertaker watching back their first match together from WrestleMania 14. I love it when they do these videos. They did a good one years ago with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon watching their ladder match back from WrestleMania 10. But they start this one from Pete Rose's entrance straight on through to the post-match. And it was during that post-match that Kane drops The Undertaker with the tombstone onto a chair. After which, Undertaker lets out a, "Oh, you got me, brother." And he and Kane share a hearty laugh over it. And I died laughing because it's just such a great story. It's such a petty thing. I could appreciate the pettiness of it. But it is just such a great story. That, and he just cannot hide his disdain for Hulk Hogan. Anytime somebody brings him up, even when he talked recently about Hogan being booed out of the building in Los Angeles at the Netflix premiere, and you've got people making all kinds of excuses for why he was booed, Undertaker didn't make any excuses. He's just like, things have a way of coming back around on people. So if you don't know the story, you probably know the story. But I just love telling it because it's a classic. When you've got all kinds of people dunking on this guy for various reasons, I think that says something. Like just recently, we've had Jesse Ventura back with WWE, reiterating his dislike for Hogan for sabotaging his plans to try to unionize the boys back in '86. It took 5 years for him to even find out that Hogan was the one behind that, right? He's never forgiven him for that. CM Punk threw shade at Hogan in the lead up to the Royal Rumble. He has no love for him. Seth Rollins just this week was dunking on Hogan. The Undertaker, Scott Steiner, who's no choir boy himself, was on Chris Van Vliet's podcast and did not mince words when he was asked about Hogan. He called him a motherfucker and a piece of shit. Said that he tried to derail his career after Steiner first turned heel in WCW. His very first match after turning heel was against Lex Luger, and he lost. Came to find out later on from Sting, who was in the room, that Hogan was the one behind that decision. He didn't mention Sting by name in the interview with Chris, but it was Sting. That's what he told Chris Jericho years ago. So Hogan didn't just have creative control for himself. He had it for everybody else too. Or influence, I should say. Because if you say that he used his creative control, Eric Bischoff will tell you, well, he only used it once his entire time in WCW. Sure, legally, maybe. But if you think that Hogan didn't exert himself creatively more than once in the entire 6 years that he spent with WCW, then Double J has some gold bars that he wants to sell you. But he said Hogan also tried to get him thrown in jail once, but that's for another day. The Undertaker story, though. It's Survivor Series 1991. Undertaker, he's still a greenhorn, as they say. He's only a few years into the business by that point, a year into his run with WWE. And here he is, a year in, challenging Hulk Hogan for the heavyweight title. And he beats him. He becomes the youngest WWE champion of all time at that point. And he won with a tombstone onto a chair that Ric Flair slid into the ring. Whatever jubilation that he may have experienced was quickly extinguished when he realized that Hogan was not getting up. And it looked like he may have hurt his neck. Hogan pulled him aside before the show that night and told him, look, I have this neck injury, and I'm nervous about taking your finish. And Undertaker tells him, like, don't worry about it. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And every time that he would see Hogan, like in the hallway, if they were passing each other, for the rest of that day, Hogan would pantomime to him like, oh, my neck. Don't forget about my neck, brother. So that was the first sign that this might be a setup. Now, if you watch the finish, Hogan's head doesn't come anywhere close to the chair. But as soon as he drops to his knees, he hears Hogan say, oh, you got me, brother. And Undertaker is just almost grief-stricken because he thinks he just killed the golden goose, right? He probably killed his own career in the process. And he just can't understand how could I have hurt this man? I took every precaution. I held him in tight. It doesn't make any sense. So here he is, right? The biggest moment of his life. And what should be a happy moment is ruined by the thought that he just paralyzed this man. Okay? And he didn't even know that he was dropping the belt back to Hogan the following week at Tuesday in Texas. When he found out, he thought for sure it was because of what he did. or what he thought he did, to Hogan. So he was crushed. So Hogan's laying in the ring forever before he finally gets up and he walks out on his own power, but he's like really selling it like he's shell-shocked. And he gets to the back, and Undertaker goes searching for him, and he finds Hogan laying on the floor, and he's moaning, and the medics are there, and this is still kayfabe, right? He wants to go over and talk to him and make sure he's okay, or apologize to him, but he hides behind a wall instead. And Shane McMahon happens to be standing there next to him. And the medics are asking Hogan questions, and Undertaker hears him say, "Oh, somebody get my wife and kids on the phone. Get Linda and the kids on the phone, brother. This may be it." So remember Sanford and Son? This is the big one. "Elizabeth, I'm coming home. I'm coming to join you." That was Hulk Hogan that night at Survivor Series. So Shane can see that Undertaker's all broken up about this, and Shane tells him, he goes, "Mark, his head wasn't anywhere close to hitting the mat." Fast forward a week. It's this Tuesday in Texas, this one little special pay-per-view experiment that they tried, and they never did it again for many years. And he's defending the title against Hogan that night in a rematch. But he finally sees footage. When he gets to the building, he sees footage back, because back then they didn't have the benefit of pulling the clip up on their phone. But he watches the finish back of Survivor Series, and he sees what happened. And now the truth is revealed, right? Shane was right. So now he's got to confront Hogan about this, because he can't let this slide. Just as a man, he can't let this slide. But he's in an impossible position here, because what's he going to do? Like, is he going to beat him up? He's going to embarrass Hogan, yell at him, dress him down in front of the locker room? I mean, Hogan was the man back then. You could talk about his popularity was waning, and that all may well be true, but he was still the guy, right? And he knew that his career would be over if he did that. But he's got to know the truth. So he finds Hogan, and he pulls him aside, and he says, "Terry, I watched the finish back, and your head never hit." And Hogan says, "Well, brother, you see," it's great when he tells the story too, because this is exactly what he says. He goes like, "Well, brother, you see, what happened is you had me hooked so tight that I couldn't move, and that's what jammed my neck." So he didn't drop him on his head, but he held him so tight that he had nowhere to go, and "You got me, brother." And that was when Undertaker realized what Hogan really was, and how the man did business and protected his spot. And it all worked out okay in the end for The Undertaker, but it could have easily swung the other way. If Vince McMahon was not so in love with The Undertaker character, because it was his creation, he has a special place in his heart for that character. If he was just another guy on the roster, Undertaker tells a story about how he was worried he was going to be Eggman, because they had the giant egg that was going to hatch at that Survivor Series where he debuted. And until Vince called him and said, "Hey, are you my Undertaker?" He's watching TV every week, and they're talking about this fucking egg that's going to hatch at Survivor Series. He thought he was going to be Eggman. He was going to pop out of the fucking egg, and that was going to be his gimmick. I guarantee you that if Vince McMahon had Hulk Hogan defending the WWF title against Eggman in the main event of Survivor Series in 1991, and Eggman thought he dropped Hogan on his head, and Hogan sold it like this guy is dangerous and unsafe to work with, Eggman would have been gone, okay? He would no longer be in WWE. So I actually think that it was maybe the gimmick and the character as much as anything else that may have saved him in that situation. Hogan could have killed that man's career dead. He probably tried to, but it didn't work. But Undertaker never forgot about that. That night, he knew all he needed to know about the great Hulk Hogan. He tried to sabotage this man's career. Evidently, he didn't jam his neck too badly, because once they told him that he was getting the belt back the week after, he was back in the ring like nothing ever happened. He looked just fine.